Hey folks, Malforian here, and it is Friday, so we're going through Johan's replies to the latest Tinto Talks for EU5, which was all around the cabinet. To be honest, not as many spicy answers this week, but there was some interesting information given out by him, as he always does each week, so we're just going to get straight into it. The first question is, how big can you get the cabinet? And the answer by Johan is that it is currently 8 to 10 people is the maximum cabinet size. That's actually larger than I thought it was going to be, but I guess by the time we get to the end of the game, it is quite developed into history, so it does make sense, I guess, that the cabinet does get a little bit larger as you go through. I kind of thought it was going to be like 5 to 6, but again, I imagine most realms will probably be around there, and then just your most progressed nations are going to get up to 8 or 10 or something like that. The next question, all around the AI in the game, and obviously people worrying that the AI is going to be terrible, but also this player asking, can we automate the whole cabinet system? And Johan saying, no, you cannot automate this system. I think that makes sense. I'm not sure how it would work automated. Like, obviously, the AI automates all this stuff, so I guess you could think, like, well, can I not just do that so that the AI does my cabinet? But I'm not too sure with, like, how many you can have and all the different things they can do. I'm not sure that you get a good experience if you automated it. I guess you could do it that way, but to me, that's really kind of pushing away too much of the gameplay. I'm sure there'll be mods that allow you to do it, though, if you do want to do that. But yeah, I'm kind of with Johan here, where you have to actually interact with the system. The next question, I hope there is an option to execute all your cabinet, which did make me laugh. Execute order 666, or something along those lines. And Johan saying, nothing planned, but sometimes you do feel like off with their heads. So yeah, they are going to cause you some trouble. He did say later on, there are going to be events based around your cabinet, and things can kind of spiral out from there. So there is going to be times where you are going to be wondering if you could kill them all off and replace them, but sadly not. You've got to remove them in the more, normal ways, as you will discuss later on as well. The next question, actually around development. We kind of didn't talk about this in the last video, but we did get confirmation that development is coming back in EU5, although it does look like it's going to work a little bit different from how it did in EU4. It looks like buildings are going to be more of that system, and development is like an addition to that rather than it being like the main focus around the economy side of the game. But this player was asking how develop province works. This is one of the options we saw, and Johan's reply is that it makes development tick up in a province over time. But again, development isn't, by the sounds of it, like the be-all and end-all of the economy, so I don't think this is going to be as important as it was in EU4. Vispian then asked, is there a cost to removing cabinet members outside of, Order 666? And will there be situations where you're forced to keep one, kind of like Crusader Kings? Yes, it costs gold to assign a new character to the cabinet, and it costs stability to remove someone from the cabinet. So it's not like EU4, where I think it just costs you money, doesn't it, to fire somebody? I think it's a multiple of their monthly cost is what it costs you to fire them, if I remember correctly. But in EU5, it looks like it actually costs you stability to remove somebody. Like I said, I don't think that's the case in EU4. One of you will no doubt correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong with that, but I believe that is the big change here compared to the previous game. Bapton then asked, will some countries have laws preventing heretics from ascending to the throne, like in France or the UK after the revolution? And the answer just being simply yes, you can have that. It will be like England not allowing Catholic rulers and things like that. It looks like some of them will be historical examples, and I wonder if you can just go in and change your realm to be that way. I'm sure that will be an option as well, so you can kind of decide a faith, and that's like locked in as your state faith for your ruler, and they have to be that to be eligible to be ruling it. Obviously, that's exactly what happened in the UK. Never had any Catholic rulers who just pretended not to be. That never happened. Don't look into it too much, guys. The next question, I like the mechanics, but he hates the UI. Hope this is all placeholder. Now, one thing I will say is I saw some people get worried about this answer here. Johan replied with that this is the style they are going for, a classic style of graphics, but it's also made to scale quite nicely, I guess, depending on UI, and making it look nice on your screen. I saw some people think this meant that, like, the graphics you saw are the finalized graphics. That isn't the case. Johan's just saying the kind of style you're seeing on the screen with these UIs is how it's going to look. They're really going for, like, an evolution of the EU4 UI, a lot more nicer to use, but the actual, like, style of the graphics is going to be that style. But these aren't like the full finalized UI graphics. Like, he was more just saying, like, yes, this is what it's going to look like, and we went for this style intentionally because it kind of fits in with the kind of time frame they're going for. Very much like the UI in EU4. I think a lot of people like it. It is a bit dated now, but it does fit the time period quite well, and I think generally people like that look to it. They don't want something that looks like, more minimalistic, a boring UI. Think of something like Humankind. It's going to catch strays here that I hate the UI for Humankind. It's one of the reasons I've never played that game is I just can't stand the UI, to be honest. You don't want it to look like that. They want it to look kind of stylized towards the kind of era that it is. Like I say, like EU4, don't worry about it too much, as I pretty much say in every video. The UI isn't fully finalized yet. Will estates attempt to force a cabinet member on you if the conditions are met? If they gain a lot of power, they may do that. So this was one of the things kind of coming out of the dev diary where it said the cabinet can gain control kind of over more power of the state. And it looks like this is one of the things they could do. I guess like if they have somebody they want to put on the cabinet, if they're powerful enough, the cabinet could just come and say like, hey, this guy should be on here as well. And you've got no decision over this. So we're going to do it. And then you can either agree, I guess, or maybe do a good old civil war. We'll see, obviously, when the game comes out. In the next question, it was all about expelling population, which was one of the things, again, that was kind of shown off in the dev diary. Will this spread your population from one location over your entire nation? Can you choose the expelling of pops or the encouragement of migration to only apply to certain cultures and religions? And Johan kind of half answering this question. Expel pops will move people away from one province. Now, he didn't really answer, does it just spread them out over everywhere? I think it'll work like Imperator Rome, where I believe you could expel them from a province, and it did just spread them into like the nearby provinces a little bit. So you could kind of dilute them into the rest of your realm in like the location they were. I believe that will be how it works. Maybe you have a bit more control over it. Maybe you can expel them to certain areas, but it does sound like, at least from Johan's response, it just says move people from one province. So who knows? It could work either way, I guess. You could select a certain place, like send them off to the colonies, or I wonder if it will be more a general, like, move them from here and it just disperses them out. Again, we'll get more information about this probably next week, as it is going to cover migration and population. So I imagine we'll get a bit more information in that dev diary. In the next question, can the cabinet stop you from doing things that you don't want to do, like Conclave in CK2, or perhaps affect negatively your goals in some way? And Johan just say, no, this isn't Crusader Kings. And he will clarify this again later, so I'll talk about it a little bit there. Somebody asked a similar-ish question and got a similar-ish answer, but with a bit more context as well. So we'll cover that a little bit later, but he is just saying, like, no, this isn't Crusader Kings. In the next question, can cabinet ministers become problems? Can they, say, become hated by the nobles, leading to instability, or try to enrich themselves? Johan's saying there are some risks, but it is mostly through events, so it's not just going to be, like, general gameplay things, really, that happen in that way. It is going to be events that pop up, and it'll be, I guess, like, this cabinet member is embezzling money. Do you want to deal with it, or do you want to let him continue? And then the other estates are going to be annoyed about it or not, etc. Maybe you lose stability, things like that. Kind of similar-ish things that we see in EU4, I would think. The next question, what is the difference between control and population satisfaction? And Johan here with a really good answer, I think, that kind of gave you the context towards it. The secret police may make you obey the law and pay the taxes, that's control, but they can't make you happy about it. That's the pop satisfaction. So you can have high control, low population satisfaction. Maybe you could have both if you have other things that counteract the fact that they're unhappy about being forced to do things. But you could have low control and high satisfaction. You kind of see how that works. I thought that was a really good example, kind of explaining it really easily, what the difference is there between the two. And the next one, speaking of characters, will you as a monarchy be able to turn your heir into an admiral, like King Carl XIII of Sweden? Yes, your heir can command armies or navies or even serve in the cabinet. I guess as all the traits and things like that are kind of character-wide across the game, it makes sense they can kind of interact in different systems. So good confirmation of that. That is how I thought it would work, but it's cool again to get confirmation. Historically, the French Estates General had a say in states diplomacy. Will they be able to exert control of the king and the cabinet in Caesar, aka EU5. This is the one I was talking about earlier, and again, kind of clarifies what I say in most of these videos around some of these questions, is that in EU4, EU5, you don't play as the king, you are playing as the country. This is, again, I think I said in last week's video, this is one of these things that if you come from Crusader Kings, where you play as the king, you're playing as that dynasty, and you kind of happen to rule a kingdom, you happen to be the emperor of this place, you are playing as yourself, in a way, and that is what the game is focused on. EU4, EU5, you are the country. That's how you've got to think about it. So yes, in theory, the generals could come in and try to exert control on the king or whatever, but you're not playing as the king. You've got to kind of get out of that mentality. You're playing as the country. So it's not really like the king versus the cabinet and all these other systems. Like, you're all the systems in a way. You've got to think of it more that way rather than, you know, you're the one person and then the rest of the country. So again, a good clarification here by Johan. I kind of feel like he should have this in the dev diary every so often, so people really kind of understand that is the difference. I'm sure many of you have played EU4, so you're like, shut up, Malforian. You bring this up all the time. But I think there's a lot of people who watch these videos who have never played EU4, were either waiting for EU5 or kind of fell off the wagon with it a little bit and are coming back to the game or new to the game and, you know, kind of need to not like understand how it plays, but I think, as I said, I think last week, come in with a mentality of this, of like, you're playing the country, you're not playing the dynasty. It doesn't matter if the dynasty changes. Yeah, you'll probably have your favorite dynasty and you want to keep them in control and things like that, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day if your dynasty changes, if you're, you know, taken over by a different dynasty or whatever. You're playing as the country. It ultimately doesn't really matter. Obviously, being taken over by another dynasty does matter in some cases, but that's a different thing. That's some gameplay mechanics. Don't worry about it. In the next one, of course, the most important question ever asked in one of these dev diaries: can I have Glitterhoof as a cabinet member? No, this isn't Crusader Kings. So again, Johan really hammering it home this week. This isn't Crusader Kings. Stop asking about it, and you won't be able to get Glitterhoof. I'm sure someone will make a mod immediately to bring Glitterhoof into it, and we'll all meme about it. The next question: can cabinet members make demands like go to war? No, but the Parliament may, and we haven't really had the Parliament covered. I'm sure that will be coming up relatively soon, but it looks like the Parliament could come to you, I guess, and say, we voted to go to war with France, we want you to go to war with France. And I guess you could say yes or no. Civil war shenanigans may occur if you say no, but depending on how this works, it could make for some really interesting games where you just say yes to everything they ask for and just see what happens. That would be pretty fun to do, I think. I'm sure some of you are crying and saying, like, no, that would be awful, but for me, I think it would be fun having a strong parliament and them kind of, like, dictating to you. Again, kind of getting away from how I just said, like, you're playing the country, don't worry about it too much, but I think it's hard sometimes to get away from that mentality. And even here, I'm like, yeah, the Parliament's coming to you as the king and saying, do this, but again, you're the whole country, but I still think that kind of dynamic would be pretty fun. The next question, Lord Lambert. Never heard of the guy. Is there a default action that the cabinet members do if you do not assign them to something specific? No. Have you ever seen a politician do something they're not forced to do? Which, to be honest, is a pretty funny reply. I guess people asking because, again, in Crusader Kings, there's always a default action that your council are doing, but it looks like in EU5, if you don't tell them to do something, they just go, thanks for the money, I'm off to have a party, chaps. See you when you decide to wake up. In the next question, is it anti-snowballing mechanics similar to CK23 and EU4? 20 OPMs would grow the land much faster than a 20-province empire. And Johan saying, yes, this is anti-snowballing mechanics. Now, I did see some players saying, like, this means we're going to get the return of, like, having vassals being the primary way to play the game well, where you just have your vassals, they expand your realm, as it were. But the actual land you own directly is relatively small. I think that could be the case, but again, I think they will change that a little bit, so that isn't like the min-max way to play the game, to be honest. But it does look like it is going to be, again, trying to push you away from just painting the map in certain ways. Like I say, I'm sure there's going to be stuff to counteract just having like 100 vassals, and they're all just going nutso on the map as well. So I'm sure we'll get a lot more information about that in a future dev diary. And then in the last question, 2 questions actually. Can the ruler's wife, husband join the cabinet? In some cases they can. And will there be advisors like in EU4, or is the cabinet a complete replacement for them? Now, Johan just said no, but I believe he's saying no to the first half. I think he is saying, as we discussed in the video on Wednesday, the cabinet is really replacing advisors. That system's gone, the cabinet is replacing it, and I think this is a much better version anyway, but you're not going to have advisors and the cabinet. It is now just the cabinet. And that's how you kind of have characters that kind of affect your realm as well. But with that, that is going to be the end of the video for today. As always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new here. I cover the Tinto Talks on a Wednesday. And then every Friday, I do one of these quick follow-up videos where we just go through Johan's replies. As I always say, it gives away bits of information about the subject that the dev diary was on, and then sometimes just random other stuff as well. So they're kind of fun to go through. That's why I cover them. It could be quite easy just to leave these and tell you to go read the dev diary and the responses, but I really enjoy talking about the game. This gives me another chance to do so. So hopefully you enjoy these, but we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.